This is a Rough Tiger production.
And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
Welcome to Dream Idiots. Bryan, how you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. It's nice and chilly up here in Colorado. The frost is definitely on the pumpkins, and we are we're gearing up for the long slide down into the new year here.
Yes, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Unfortunately, I like the holidays, but man, I'm happy when they are fucking over.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, the
Work
first Monday in January is my favorite day of the year.
really.
Yeah,
That's that one, including that one year where you broke your leg, right? I mean, that was
even then.
even then. Bryan, where can the good folks get a hold of us for more information and more dreamy idiotness?
If you would like to see more dreamy, creamy idiot nonsense, you can go to dreamidiots.com. There's merchandise there. You can find us on every single podcast platform there is, I think, at this point. And so if you want to go out and give us 5 stars on whichever platform you're listening and shoot us a note, you can do that. That'd be fabulous and greatly appreciated. You can also email us at dreamidiots.podcast@gmail.com, and we're on Instagram and we're on Facebook too. Just search on Dream Idiots and you'll find us.
And do we have any updates? I've got one. I don't know if you have any.
I have a
I've got
pile
one
of
update.
updates that are sort of sitting, actually I have a mess of stuff in my inbox. I suspect I'll do like a 10-minute update on some things first episode in January.
Oh,
I
okay.
have like at least 4 that I know of that are worth checking in on.
Well, I've got a quick one. If you remember, I did a brief statement on a case called Bryan versus Holland on a group's attempt to undo the Indian Child Welfare Act. There was actually a whole episode.
I saw that in the news this past week. Yeah.
There was a whole episode round about the middle of November on what's next from Slate that covered this
Mm-hmm.
much better than I could with a native rights activist attorney. Um, well worth checking out on what's next from Slate. So if you guys want to go back through and check that out, it's really great. It was a good episode, and it was much more succinct, but certainly than I was on explaining that case. That's from around about November 16th, I think. What's next from Slate covers that case.
Excellent.
That's my quick update. It is an even episode, which means I get to go first.
You're
Correct,
on.
Bryan?
Oh no.
I'm going to tell you about Florrie Fisher. You ever heard of Florrie Fisher?
Florrie? No, I have no idea.
Good. She was born September 8th, 1918 in Brooklyn to Morris and Pauline. So she's already got a strike against her because she's got a dad named Morris.
Uh-huh.
She was a first generation American. Both of her parents were Lithuanian immigrants. The youngest of 3 children, having followed sister Gertrude and brother Ivan. The Fishers were an upper middle class Jewish family in Bensonhurst, and while her father was a strict disciplinarian, Florrie wanted for nothing. She took dance lessons and had a very typical childhood of the time. The Fisher children experienced typical sibling rivalry, usually engineered by Florrie. She liked to torture her sister Gertrude by pressing a single finger down on Gertrude's neatly stacked clothes in dresser drawers, knowing full well her neat freak sister would notice the indentation and tell their mother. Her brother Ivan seems to have incurred the most wrath from Florrie, who saw her brother as the spoiled son of the family, referring to him as both, quote, a panty waist and, quote, Jesus Christ Ivan. She enjoyed making his life a living hell by telling the girls he brought home on dates all about the previous girls he had brought home on dates. Florrie scared one girl off by telling her that she just might be the one to convince Ivan, quote, that he liked girls more than he liked boys, end quote. That particular girl ran off in tears. Florrie even considered accusing him of attacking her once, but felt that an incest accusation was going a bit too far even for her. Pardon me while I take the sip of tea that's keeping my throat going. Attention-seeking practical jokes are part of Florrie's repertoire. She slid open one of the upper floor screen windows, slid it all the way down, screamed that she was going to kill herself by jumping out of the window, quickly snuck down the back stairs and splayed herself out on the sidewalk directly below the window, waiting for someone to spot her crumpled body. Her mother saw her and simply shouted, "Florrie, you're letting all the flies in." Throughout high school, she had a boyfriend named Joe who was from a very similar family. This seemed to be an arranged relationship between the sets of parents, but Florrie liked him well enough, although he seemed to be a bit dull and would not attempt any kind of physical relationship beyond handholding. He was opposed to premarital sex. He's described as good old Joe, always around, always eager, always boring. Unlike her siblings, who opted for city colleges, Florrie attended a huge Midwestern state university and joined a sorority, both of which she refused to name because she had taken a pledge to, quote, not bring shame upon their house or school. And given what she gets up to in later life, that was probably a good move on her part. One of her favorite things to do was head downtown with a sorority sister named Betsy, whom Florrie described as an innocent country girl. The two young ladies would then head to the red light district in town and try to, quote, pick out the prostitutes. And then they would watch the ladies ply their trade. I'm going to be very careful with the words I use. I'll try to use sex workers, but if I'm quoting Florrie directly, there are certain words she uses of the time.
Sure, right.
She graduated with a degree in anthropology and returns to New York and marries Joe in both a civil ceremony at her own insistence and then a traditional Jewish wedding 3 weeks later. But true to form, Joe refuses to consummate the marriage because he's still opposed to premarital sex and only considers the wedding itself valid.
Okay, sure.
She gets married. She gets married at the civil ceremony. I think finally we can have a little action. And he says, "No, we've got to wait for the real wedding." That pisses her off. And the one constant thought Florrie has in the early days of her marriage to Joe was, "How the hell did I get myself into this goddamn mess?" Their marriage ends less than a year after it started by mutual agreement. But in Florrie's fashion, it has to end spectacularly. You couldn't just get a divorce back then in New York State in 1939/40. She's really loose with the dates prior to the 1940s, so I'm kind of guessing when this is. Sometime around 1939, 1940. So Florrie and Joe collude to end the marriage in a way that will satisfy the legal system. Joe has an uncle, Fred, who recently immigrated from Europe, who agrees to stage a photo where he and Florrie will be caught in flagrante delicto. Old Uncle Fred, by a fluke of familiar ties and timing, is also younger than his nephew Joe. The photo depicts Florrie nude on the bed covers, with old young Uncle Fred in his boxers looking rather uncomfortable. The photograph supports the charge of adultery, and Joe's divorce petition is granted by the state.
Immediately.
So,
there's no because at the time it would have been, I think, like a 6-month waiting period. Right.
Yeah. So he's proved his charge of
right.
adultery, and the wedding's over.
Nice.
The marriage is over. So, newly single, Florrie realizes that she has difficulty adjusting to her new life. Her old friends are pretty much all married, and they don't associate with divorcees. So she moves back in with her parents. Pauline, in a motherly attempt to draw her daughter back into the world, takes her daughter to the Catskills for a vacation. And of course, this was in the heyday of the Catskill resorts, which were a haven for Jewish families for vacation at the time. The days pass, and Florrie is incredibly bored until she meets a young man named David Bohm, and she falls madly in love. Florrie calls him, quote, "my little zoot suitor, my sinewy swinger." They lie to each other about their ages. David says he's 27 and Florrie claims to be 20. In reality, he's 18 and she's 23. Florrie is so taken with David that when it's time to head home, she concocts a story to stay a bit longer while her mother heads back to the city. Florrie convinces her mother that she is going to stay with Francis, a childhood friend visiting the same Catskills resort at the same time. Frances herself has a backstory worthy of a Florrie story. As a child, Frances had been doused in gasoline by a neighborhood child, apparently a psychotic neighborhood child, and lit on fire.
Wow.
Her face and shoulders were severely burned and required multiple operations with what passed for plastic surgery in the 1930s. Florrie chooses to focus on the positive by describing Frances as having an amazing personality and a sensational body with, quote, a slender waist and generous hips. She's a well-liked young lady. She realized that the dating scene is going to be difficult for her. She's used to one-and-done blind dates, that kind of thing. And so Florrie is set up as 1/6 of a triple date with Frances and some other young people in the area. But of course, she backs out at the last second to hang out with David by the lake. And while sitting there with David, he introduces her to what would be the true great love of her life, marijuana.
Uh-oh.
Or what she describes as marijuana from the Orient. And I don't know what she means by this, Bryan.
I don't really associate marijuana
and she describes it as sticks of marijuana. So I'm wondering if she's talking about maybe hash. I don't know exactly what she's getting at here, but apparently it's incredibly potent. She gets very, very high. She says, unlike anything she's ever experienced before. All she wants to do is hang out with David and go skinny dipping with him, although she's still kind of modest, so she leaves her bra on for some reason. And while she's doing this, hanging out with David, skinny dipping and getting high, Frances and her friends are killed in a car accident on the mountain road headed to the dance. And Florrie, in a way that almost casually just mentions this in her retelling, notes that Frances was decapitated. What?
Didn't see that coming. Okay, go ahead.
No, you should try reading this book that this is from. She just drops it in there like an afterthought. Oh yeah, and Frances was decapitated.
Okay.
It took a few days for Florrie's family to find out that Florrie was actually still alive because the story of Frances's death made both the newspaper and the radio. Florrie and David return to the city, but don't get in touch with their parents and spend their days scrounging the city for food and money, and their nights sleeping in hotel and apartment lobbies or crashing with David's associates, who include drug dealers and sex workers. Some of them look, the sex workers that is, as though their faces were caught in what Florrie calls explosions in a cosmetics factory. A lot of the sex workers Florrie and David hung out with serviced businessmen from the Midwest who would come into New York. They were, quote, good time Charlies rolling into town. They were meat packers who go for tender flowers. They look at hamburger all day long and want some veal cutlets to compensate. Her new father-in-law was a furrier, and he gave Florrie a hand-stitched Persian lamb coat, which Florrie and David promptly arranged to have stolen in a $1,000 insurance scheme.
I'd like her more and more.
Are you exhausted yet?
Getting there.
Florrie convinces David, hey, we can make a lot of money in this sex trade thing. I want to go into the sex trade, and we can earn more money for more marijuana. And he's resistant to doing this. He doesn't want to do it. David doesn't want to do it. But in Florrie's words, quote, David didn't make me a whore. I made him a pimp, a gold-plated pimp. She learns the trade over a period of time and builds a steady clientele, mostly regular guys, but a few oddballs with nicknames like the Coffin Man and the Pig Man. Florrie's first arrest for prostitution came during this period, followed by a second arrest very quickly for larceny. Quote, I allegedly beat up this trick for his dough, which I actually did. After a jazz show around 57th Street, Florrie's hanging out with some friends, and she tries heroin, or her code words for it, horse or schmeck, for the first time. She absolutely loves it, and she convinces David to try it, but David gets so sick she takes him home. So she gets there, makes sure he's still breathing, rolls him on his side, and thinks, how can I get back to the party? And leaves to find the dealer who gave her the first shot of the evening and starts the whole party all over again. David stays away from heroin for 5 years, but Florrie immediately drops her old boyfriend marijuana in favor of heroin. Her relationship with David starts to suffer. Florrie is arrested and again sent to the House of Detention, and that's down near Chinatown, like in the old Paul Simon song.
Uh-huh.
Me and Julio down by the
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
this
sure.
House
Yeah.
of Detention. She's sent there again on yet another prostitution charge. This time, though, she's a full-blown addict and suffers severe withdrawals. So David sends her a telegram because she calls him for bail. He sends her a telegram. He sends her a singing telegram to tell her that he's not bailing her out and needs to kick the habit. We were hugging and a kissing. Now you're puking and a pissing, doing the withdrawal rag. No, he just sends her a regular telegram. I'm just kidding. But he does say, I'm not bailing you out. You need to kick this stuff because it's going to kill you if you don't quit doing the heroin. After her stay at House of Detention, she reunites with David, only to discover that while she's been in there, he now likes being a connection and has massive amounts of heroin in their apartment that he's just storing there while he gets it ready to sell on the streets. Florrie steals here and there from what she can from him, but she has to find outside sources, so she starts using behind his back, yet right under his nose. Sometimes she'll sneak in her dealer to shoot her up in the kitchen, like she'll let the dealer in the window, and she'll be standing there talking to him in the kitchen door with her arm hidden behind the wall. The dealer will be shooting her up, and she'll be talking to David, who's in the bedroom. And so there's 3 people in the apartment. David has no idea the guy's there. Meanwhile, Florrie's got a needle in her arm in the kitchen.
Yeah,
Getting
multitasking. Come on.
high. Yes. She starts cheating her connections and her drug dealers, though, not paying them the right amount or using the, quote, Michigan roll con and other tricks. Do you know what the Michigan roll is?
I think it's having higher currency on the outside, having a 20 or 50 on the outside roll of bills, but having ones or just paper on the inside.
You've been hanging out with Florrie, huh? You went to the Florrie school of, yeah. You've got
I've
like
heard that term.
you've
Before,
got like
yeah.
100 on the outside, and you flash that roll, and then
Right.
you substitute it for a second roll, which is just 20s or a 20, maybe a 5 and a 1, and then maybe just blank paper wrapped up in the
Right.
middle, and you pass
Right.
that off as your
Right.
yeah. So one of the connections rats her out to David and says, "Man, you got to rein her in because she's making a lot of enemies in the city by pulling this stuff." And that's when David turns into the gold-plated pimp and becomes a real asshole. He starts beating Florrie and working out her schedule, following her around, making sure she's doing everything. He says, if you want to fix, you come to me. And he becomes a true pimp. The violence escalates into a public beating in the theater district one evening after Florrie threatens to call the police on him. And the police are now watching her heavily after her 3 arrests. She's burned all her bridges with local dealers. David has now turned violent and a dealer and a true pimp himself. So Florrie says, well, it's time to leave. So she goes to Boston to clean up and work for an established madam over in Boston, where she feels she'll be safer. Okay. So she goes to Boston and she works for this madam briefly before setting out on her own, mainly because she discovers a new hobby. And that hobby is, quote, the granddaddy of heroin and morphine, opium. And here's a long quote about opium from Florrie. The use of opium goes back a lot further than Brooklyn. Even the Sumerians must have had junkies, for they were using opium in 400 BC. It was in Boston that I first tried cocaine, too. Many cokeheads stay at sniffing, never go to shooting. Me, I started shooting cocaine right away. She never shies away from excess. She just jumps right into the deep end with whatever she's doing.
How she's alive, it's hard to tell, but
She liked to mix her cocaine occasionally with heroin, which we know is a speedball, which is what killed John Belushi and Chris Farley, although Chris Farley used heroin's cousin morphine. So technically, Florrie took on the SNL speedball tag team and won. It's not a competition, Florrie. You don't have to take on every druggie in the world. Word gets to Florrie in Boston that Davy has been busted for receiving stolen goods. So what does she do because she loves him? He heads back to New York City and spends the entire day searching for him. but finds no trace in the New York correctional system of Davy Bohm. As it happens, he's in upstate New York at Hampton Farms Reformatory, where all of the inmates there are under the age of 21.
Ah.
And that's how Florrie found out that Davy lied about his age when they first met up in the Catskills. So, Bryan, what do you think she does when she finds out that Davy is in the reformatory school?
Probably goes up there to figure out some way to break him out, claim she's the sister, the aunt, the something, and get him out.
Oh, yeah, okay, she might do something like that. Or she starts smuggling drugs into the reformatory.
Or that. Could do that instead. Also good.
There's pot in small plastic bags, which are then stuffed inside baked chicken necks. She picked up, it's a delicacy called helsel that you can get in Jewish delicatessens. She pulls out the stuffing and replaces that stuffing with pot in small plastic bags. Now, the opium was another subject altogether. The pot stuffed chicken necks were no problem. She just passed that over in a plate. Here they are.
Right.
But the opium was in a tin, a small tin, which was inside a condom, which was inside Florrie. Okay.
Got it.
She meets with Davy, excusing herself to the ladies' room. Florrie took the condom out of her, and then the tin out of the condom, washed it off, and returned to the visiting room. She passes it over to Davy, who, after a while, goes to the men's room and lodges it up his rectum to get it past the guards, because he's going to get searched when he leaves the visitors' room.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you doing
And
all
that's
right?
the story of Christmas. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Fortunately for Davy, the opium spills from the tin while it's up inside him, and he collapses in an almost immediate cardiac arrest.
Good times.
Florrie's idea of rescue is to leave the farm immediately, find the nearest phone booth on the country road outside, and call the farm's superintendent office and shout, "Check Davy Bohm for opium poisoning," and then escape back to Boston. Davy survives, claims to know nothing about opium poisoning or the pot stuffed chicken necks, blames it on his crazy girlfriend / wife, and he gets released 6 weeks later on good behavior. As it turns out, he'd been running while he was in there because he's one of the older inmates at this reformatory. Because it's people under 21, and he's 19, 20 by now. He'd been running a bookmaking operation while at the farm and came out, quote, a few $100s ahead. He and Florrie reunite in New York City and continue their lives in the sex trade. Davy builds a stable of workers, so he's got his own set of girls now that he can use. And he makes Florrie call these girls her wife-in-laws. You're my wife, so these girls are therefore your wife-in-laws. And he continues to become a bigger and bigger piece of shit, withholding Florrie's fix, beating her, and screwing her around with the wives-in-law, which I fixed because I think that's actually grammatically correct. Wives-in-law, I think is what you should say.
Right.
And here's what you realize: this is a fun ride. This comes from her book that I read. I'll give you the sources in a little bit later. This is what she says. She says, "The only person I was destructive to was me. All junkies are self-destructive. It's their hang-up. When junkies die, no matter when or how, they should all be listed as suicides. They kill themselves." Damn, Florrie, that's harsh, man. I mean, you have an illness. You're an addict. It's an illness. It's a sickness. That's the way it works.
Right.
So she's pretty harsh on herself. But again, this is the 1940s. And so, Brandon, I've got to throw one more twist into the wrench here because I wrenched into the works because I didn't expect this to happen. But Florrie's gory story is about pain and glory, and it's continued next episode. This is the end of part 1.
Oh, shit.
We're only up to 1940 or 41, maybe 42.
And then in part 2, she changes her name to Kathy Lee Gifford, and then we hear the rest of it. No, okay.
He's got another good 30 years of this nonsense to get through.
Oh, shit.
So we will pick up next time as Florrie and David reunite in New York City and continue their lives as drug addicts and sex workers. And that is the end of Florrie Fisher part 1.
Wow, yeah, I've never heard of them. That's great. Okay. Part 1 to be continued. Yeah, great story. I'm dying for part 2 now. All right, I have a curse word for you. Ready?
Sure.
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
So, as it is the holidays, you can probably appreciate the fact that I was laughing 10 days, 2 weeks ago about the fact that my delightful 87-year-old mother pulled out her small collection of nativity scenes. And so some of these little scenes I've seen my entire life, and I've always been mildly amused by the fact that one of them, I swear to Christ, Jesus is Japanese. And one of them, it's like the entire thing is set in Hawaii because they're like palm trees, and like I don't understand the theme of this, but it turns out that creches, nativity scenes, are very specific, but they're very over time are regionalized, and local artisans will make the nativity scene. We'll make it their own, right? We'll make nativity scenes for their home continent, their home country, reflect their culture. So in Mexico, they're obviously they're wearing Mexican hats and native animals, native plants, etc. Sometimes these creches are just Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. Sometimes it's plus the wise men, and sometimes it's plus many animals. Sometimes it's deviates even further than that. For years and years in Austin, if you went to, there's a moderately, I wouldn't say famous, but locally well-known Christmas display on 34th Street, just off Guadalupe in Austin, where you can go see Christmas lights. And this one family had their nativity scene set up in the back of a car with lights, and their nativity had the three Budweiser men, which is three bottles of Budweiser. The Virgin Mary was I recall it being either a Virgin Daiquiri or a Bloody Mary. I can't now remember which. And the baby Jesus is the baby cheeses, and it's a little slice of gorgonzola in the manger. So you can choose to take ownership of the nativity scene any way you'd like. But there's one nativity scene that I love really the most, and that going back now to late 17th century, early 18th century in Catalan, so the northern portion of Spain, portions of France, and actually northern parts of Italy as well. There is a tradition there such that the nativity scene is actually almost like a diorama. It is a much larger display with some of them are very, very complex, with roads and rivers and multiple buildings and many people in this scene. It's not just that building. It can be dozens of characters, and it's a much larger display. But in this area, they have a character called the Caganer, Caganer. Does that ring a bell at all?
Caganer?
Caganer.
No. Mm-mm.
The Caganer is a character that is now for more than 200 years is a character that is in the nativity scene. They stipulate he's never close to Jesus, but is a character who's somewhere at the back of the display, is squatting with his pants around his legs, taking a shit.
No.
Yes. In 2005, the city of Barcelona actually removed the Caganer from their official nativity scene, and they had so many complaints about the absence of the Caganer that the Caganer was brought back in 2006.
That's what those people were saying to me and pointing at me when I was in Barcelona.
There he is. The Caganer.
Está aquí, Caganer, está aquí.
And you can buy...
Es un gringo gordo, pointing at me.
You can buy ornaments that are just the Caganer, and I just love this as a tradition. I love the idea of some 85, 90-year-old woman going to see this year's display and playing this game with their grandchildren. Find the Caganer, because that apparently is that's the tradition. It's like where's Waldo?
Okay.
Yeah, but the character is wildly popular, and you can buy just the character as an ornament. And I just think it's the best Christmas tradition ever.
So it's kind of like the other tradition I would think of is just like getting the little plastic baby and the baby cake for Mardi Gras when you eat the cake.
Right. Yes.
And it's also this idea of mixing the sacred and the profane, right?
Right.
The beautiful and the ugly, the My God, the Caganer. Oh,
Just
Bryan.
just brilliant. I just love this. And it's also the case that it's based on a larger poem slash song. But as you know, you and I would say, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year in Mexico, Feliz Navidad y Prospero año y felicidad, etc.
Mhm.
In this area of Spain, it is in Catalonian Spanish, which I know is a little bit different than traditional Spanish. It is very, very common to offer up the holiday greeting: "Eat well, shit hard." So, the Caganer.
Uh,
Happy holidays, everyone.
I'm gonna have to mute my mic for a second.
He's coughing his guts out.
Okay. All right.
So there you go. This week's curse word of the week.
Oh
So
God.
along these same lines, on a few episodes in weeks prior, we kind of dove into wordplay and malaprops and spoonerisms and all kinds of other anagrams and talked about different things. And I was kind of playing with the idea of talking about foreign expressions that are in English. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that you would know all of them, vis-a-vis or cul-de-sac or double entendre, or, you would know all those expressions that have been brought in, or words anyway, that have been brought into English. But then what I realized is that there are a boatload of incredibly cool, I guess the Caganeri isn't quite an idiom because it obviously isn't an expression, but there are a ton of other fabulous expressions in other countries that make sense there, that at first glance don't make sense here, but I kind of love and wish we would sort of adopt. And so I won't make you really guess these, because most of them you won't guess, although I know you're at least a little bit conversant with Russian and a little bit of Spanish. Some of these you might be able to figure out, but I'm gonna run down some expressions that I love. I'm sure you recall that there is, in one of David Steris's books, he talks about the fact that he loves the expression. I think it is, I forget whether it's in Great Britain or whether it's in Australia, the idea of shouting a meal.
Shouting a meal?
Yeah,
Yeah, my shout. Yeah, my
yeah,
shout. Will you pay for it? Yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
I've always just loved that. Like that needs to be an American
Mhm.
thing. So some of these are, they're quaint and interesting, but much like if you said George W. Bush is a few slices short of a loaf, and you said that in French, they would look at you like you were a crazy person. These are kind of random, but I will give you the source in terms of the language or country.
I'm intrigued by this, Bryan, and I want to subscribe to your newsletter. Please continue.
So in Portugal, fazer vaquinha, literally it means to make a small cow.
To make a small cow.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to have a small glass of milk or ice cream or cheese, something dairy
Oh,
related.
that's a good guess. Just some of these, unfortunately, the literal translation has nothing. It's nothing to do with what they actually mean. So,
Okay.
so your guess makes actually sense, which is unfortunate because most of these make no sense. So, to make a small cow means you're basically raising money for a specific task or person or goal.
I gotcha. Okay.
So the reference they have here, the Vasco da Gama Football Club in the 1920s, the players on the team weren't making money, and so they raised a small cow among the supporters of the football club to pay the players something, so they would keep playing. Also in Portugal, nunca mais el sábado. It's never Saturday again.
Well,
I won't make you guess all these.
It only comes around once. You might not have a second chance to do something.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of
I'm
in the
being too
right.
logical. Okay, all right.
No, I mean, you actually, but that one you actually weren't too far off. Basically, in reality, this is taking too long.
Oh,
It's never
okay.
Saturday again. Okay. It's never taking too long. I'm not even going to attempt French, but literally this expression means I have other cats to whip.
I got other shit to do. I got other irons in the fire. I got other beans to boil. I got
right.
other
Yes, essentially, right.
I got other
Also,
heroin needles to sterilize. That kind of
right. I'm busy. To have is also French. To have swollen ankles. It has nothing to do with a person's weight.
You've been sitting around on your ass not doing anything?
Yeah, good
You're
guess.
lazy,
It's literally being like, not, I guess not literally. It's someone who's overinflated. Bravado. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not sure why ankles. I mean, big headed versus this is big ankles versus big headed. In Italian, trattare al pesca in fascia, literally to treat you with a fish on your face.
To treat you with a fish on your face, slap you with a fish. I don't know. To make you, I don't know.
It's, I mean, it's basically, yes. I mean, it's basically an insult. Yeah, it's
Okay.
yes. It's a slight. Another one I won't even try to pronounce. I won't try this one. From which pulpit is that sermon coming?
Where do you get that from? Where do you get that from? What's that idea? What?
Yeah, essentially.
Who told you to say that? Yeah. Okay.
Right. Leben, this is German, obviously. Leben wie die Mate im Speck, living like a maggot in bacon.
Oh dear God. Leave it to the Germans. Jesus. That you've infested something, that you're sneaky, that you're am I reading too much into it? That's just
it's basically living the lap of luxury, basically.
Oh, okay, because you're covered in fat and grease and you can just lower up.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Okay, also German auf einem Beitstein man nicht gut.
My name nicht gut is nothing good comes from.
There's no standing on, literally there is no standing on one leg. So but you're right, nicht gut, it's not good.
Okay.
So it's not good standing on one leg. This one is actually kind of hard to explain. It's for some reason it is basically asking someone to stick around while and watch me drink. Right. Doesn't quite add up. Okay, this one's in Russian. Dat zup, to give a tooth.
To give a tooth.
Mm-hmm.
To give a fig, to actually care one whit about something, to give
kind of.
Okay.
I won't break this promise. It's gonna be, this is, cross my heart, basically.
Okay.
Well, this one's incredibly long and also Russian, and I won't even try this one. Literally means friendship is friendship, but let's keep our tobacco apart.
It means we're buddies and I like you, but some shit is mine, some shit is yours, and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, okay. Essentially.
Druga znаю. I'm trying. I don't know, something like that. Okay.
Yeah, actually, you're you're close. This one didn't make sense to me really, but I'll read it anyway. Italian, armarse al sol que masa calienta, or huddling next to the hottest sun.
Huddling next to the hottest sun. That you're attracted to the most vibrant leader or person, or
that would actually make more sense. This is essentially the same as knowing what side your bread is buttered.
Okay. Gotcha.
It doesn't.
That
one doesn't quite work as well as some of them. Going back to German, Tomaten auf den Augen haben. You have tomatoes on your eyes.
You are being foolish and blind. You're not listening to reason. You're seeing the world through tomato colored
kind
lenses.
of. It's you're not seeing what everyone else can see. It's rose-colored glasses, basically.
Okay. Right.
You're not seeing the real thing. You're seeing the abstraction, basically. So it's
Okay.
rose-colored
Right.
glasses, but in this case, tomato. Also, German, ich verstehe nur Bahnhof. I only understand the train station.
Oh,
This one makes no fucking sense.
I know my lane and how to stick in it. I know my business and I stick to it. I mind my own fish. I stick to my own business.
Yeah, you're not. I mean, you're kind of on the right track, so to speak. Ha ha ha. Pun intended. Basically, I don't understand what that person is saying. So, so you're kind of in the right ballpark.
Okay. All right.
Die Katze im Sack kaufen, to buy a cat in a sack.
Oh, cat in a sack. I know this one. You don't. It's also the name of a scam. It's also the name of a con job too. It's you're buying what they say is a cat in a sack, but you don't know what's in the sack. So you could be buying something totally. Hey, I got this cat in a sack. You want to buy it? It could be a dirty old skunk or a possum or whatever in there. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
okay, so
right. And so there are versions of this in Swedish, Polish, Latvian, Norwegian, English. Buying a pig in the poke.
Pig in the poke. Yeah, that's
and then also letting the cat out of the bag is where this comes from.
Oh, okay, all right.
Cool. Okay. Swedish. I'm not even going to attempt any of this, but the literal translation of this phrase: "There's no cow on the ice."
No cow on the ice. Yes, we have no bananas today. There's no cow on the ice. An animal, you shouldn't go where you're not supposed to go. Stick to your own business. Mind your own business.
Again, you're getting the sense of it. There's no cow on the ice. There's no need to worry. There's no danger.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
so the cow won't fall through the ice because the cow's not on the ice. Okay,
so
gotcha.
Okay. So this one I've heard before, but I've heard this next one referenced as being an Australian expression. This says it's a Swedish expression, but the expression is to I'll say it in my best Australian accent: to slide in on a shrimp sandwich.
Slide in on a shrimp sandwich. I don't know. I've never heard that one. To get in to make it by just a hair. To get in, I don't know. Get in under the buzzer. I don't know. I don't.
It's Donald Trump Jr. It's someone who didn't have to work to get where they are. So, but apparently that exists in both. I know I've heard that referenced as an Australian saying somewhere. I don't know where.
I will admit I've never heard that with my Australian sources, but it could very well be.
So going to more the Far East. So this is a Thai expression. Wouldn't even attempt this in Thai, but literal translation is: the hen sees the snake's feet, and the snake sees the hen's boobs. I'm sorry. What?
Well, I'm guessing it has something to do with perspective. How someone sees the world and sees others is determined by your own status or something like that.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
When two people know each other's secrets, basically.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So
snakes don't have feet. So
well, and famously hens don't have boobs, but
because they're not mammals. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So okay, doesn't really quite make sense. Latvian one. I'm gonna skip that one. I'm just gonna skip that one. A couple here that I should have deleted. There is a French expression which I'm not going to try to say, but translates as to jump from the cock to the donkey.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
Oh, good. Yeah, good guess. Nope.
No.
If you're
from a bad situation to a better situation.
Also a good guess, but nope.
No. Okay. All right.
It basically is someone with ADD, someone who's changing topics without any logic, basically, just sort of bouncing around. Going back to Russian, And this one translates literally as you can sharpen with an axe. You can sharpen an axe on the top of his head.
He is so hard-headed and stubborn that you can. Okay.
Yeah. Right. That one's maybe a little more obvious, but I really like that one. Going back to Portuguese, empurrar com a barriga, to push something with your belly.
To make a task harder than it should be.
Yeah, actually, I kind of like that one that better. It means to postpone something that's important, basically.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
What? Huh. All right.
Also, Portugal, pagar o pato, pay the
pay the duck.
Pay the duck. you knew that. Pay the duck.
Come clean, pay the piper.
Yeah,
make
exactly.
Your debts due. Yeah. Okay. I'm still trying to figure out the belly, but I guess the belly thing is kind of like when we say kick the can. Let's kick it down the road. Is that a similar thing to the belly?
Yeah, very much the same.
So we're kicking cans and paying ducks. Okay.
There you go. So Polish, won't even try this one. Literal translation is, did an elephant stomp on your ear?
Did you not hear what I told you? Were you not listening?
Yeah, close.
Did you not understand what I told you? What the hell's the matter with you? What?
It's basically making fun of someone's musical ability or lack of ability.
You have a 10 ear. Okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You have no ear for music. Oh, at all. Next two are also Polish. It's a roll with butter.
You, sir, are fat and greasy. I don't know.
Something that's just really easy. It's a roll with butter. It's simple.
Oh,
it's easy
okay.
peasy.
All right. Piece of cake. Easy as pie. Butter. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got the pastry thing going like we do.
Yeah.
Easiest pie. Okay.
Yeah,
piece of cake. All right.
I like that one too. Next one, also Polish. Did you fall from a Christmas tree? This one makes no sense.
Hurt? Did it hurt? What, when you fell from heaven? Because you're an angel. You're good. You're a babe. You're good looking. Is that what it is?
No.
Did you fall from? Oh, darn.
Did you fall from a Christmas? Basically means you.
Did you have a stick up your ass?
That's closer. It's you obviously don't know what you're talking about. Basically.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So I don't. Again, why that would be. So in Japan, for some reason, this didn't surprise me, but maybe it should be surprising. Japanese culture incorporates cats into expressions like crazy. Do Japanese people love cats? I don't really know, but one Japanese expression is to wear a cat on one's head.
To be vain or proud? I have no idea.
Hey, yeah, you're not. I don't know. You're not far wrong. It's basically to be two-faced. You're hiding your claws. You're
okay.
You're being right. You're pretending to be nice, but you're not.
So it is malicious in some way. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So literal. Some of these, because Japanese and then Mandarin, etc., are more in my mind, and hopefully this isn't insulting. Translations sometimes just don't really quite line up at all well. So, but this literal translation is cat's forehead.
You look like you're concentrating. You look like you're in deep with something. I don't know.
So there's cat's forehead and there's cat tongue. So a cat's forehead is just any small space. Why they'd say a cat's forehead versus a cat's paw or a dog's forehead. But if you have a studio apartment, it's a cat's forehead. A cat tongue is you would refer to something as being cat tongue as being something that's too hot to eat. So it's something you have to let sit and cool down. I don't know.
I'm not even going to pretend to get that. Okay,
No, it's
I
like,
get.
wait,
I
like
kind of
what?
get the one with the forehead, but the cat's tongue I don't get. Okay, all right.
Yeah. And just a couple more here. Cat tongue. So this is the only one, and for some reason I kind of like this one, but this is Kazakh. Literal translation is I see the sun on your back.
I see that you're ready to go, that you're about to leave me, that you're about to do what is going to harm me. You're going to harm me in some way. You're going to betray me. Something
Nope.
like that.
It's actually kind of a good one. It's basically a you're the chronic cynic here, assuming all these things are nasty. This is basically I appreciate you. I'm alive because of your help. Thank you.
Oh,
It's a an appreciative
okay.
expression. It doesn't quite make sense, but for some reason I still kind of like it.
No, it's not. It's kind of like the Irish thing. May the wind always be at your back and the
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
sun shine upon your face. Okay.
Yeah. Very much so. So Croatian. I'm not sure how similar or dissimilar Croatian is from Russian. The idiom is Mudja Lubadova. Literal translation: balls of a swan.
Is it kind of like um as useful as brass balls on a billy goat?
Yeah, I mean kind of something that is impossible is
Okay,
is
yeah,
balls
okay.
of yeah something that's completely
Hen's
unreasonable.
teeth, or
Yeah,
like English would say, hen's teeth. There's rare as
right,
hen's teeth. There's rare as swan's balls. Okay,
right,
all right,
yeah,
that's good. I like that. Okay,
yeah. And so there's a Dutch one here. I'm not going to say. Literal translation is buying something for an apple and an egg.
you got it cheaply. You got a bargain. You
Yeah,
got a
yeah, exactly.
okay.
Yeah, spot on. And last one, literal. It's Korean. Literal translation: a dog with feces scolds a dog with husks of grain.
I ate and you didn't.
That actually
Right?
makes
Because
makes
here's
more right.
here's the proof. The proof is in. There it is. I ate. See,
Right,
that's
right. I'm the
not. No, that's
Kaganer
not
and you
what
are not. No, it's not that, but it's basically the same as people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, essentially.
Oh,
But
okay. I can see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not great, but it's close.
Oh, because the one dog. Okay, so it's the empty husk. Is that what's the empty? What was the other dog had? The one dog had the feces, and the other dog had the empty.
A dog with feces scolds a dog with husks of grain.
So I've already shit, and one day you too will shit because you've got husks of grain. So you've already eaten the grain. So you're
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah,
Okay.
I guess.
This fall on Fox, Canine Cogniers.
Wednesdays on CBS. Caganer PI. No. Um, all right, that's all I got. Foreign idioms.
Well, that was quite the little trip there.
Yeah,
Um,
and nice to have. I mean, we've done some slightly heavier stuff. All the talk about the AIM movement, and then Henrietta last week. So light and stupid and frilly was I don't know, felt like the right thing to
yeah,
do.
all I talked about was being a junkie and addiction and heroin.
Yeah, but it was, but in a really good way.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for everything you do for us, the ratings, the reviews, the emails. Thanks a lot, and
Yeah,
we'll see you
absolutely.
next time.
Yep. Thanks for listening, folks. We appreciate it. Let us know what you think. Give us 5 stars if you don't mind, if you haven't already. And we're going to be back again next week.
Be good to each other.
This is a Rough Tiger production.
Bong bong,
Mhm.
Bryan.
Bong bong.
Bong bong.
Bong bong. Good.